Women's History Month. I am Adrean Turner, the host of Fit for Women TV, where we support women to fear less, be inspired, and transform for greater success. And I am thrilled today to have two amazing guests on the show. But let's get started with our title. We are talking about finding fulfillment and paying it forward. Now, it's important because we know that women aren't in the leadership roles within our corporate arenas that we desire to be. There's a pay gap and there is an opportunity gap. Now, let's talk about the pay gap because this is serious. Women earn, on average, only 81 cents for every male that earns $1. For African-American women, that number is 63 cents. And for Hispanic women, that number is 55 cents. So we've got some work to do. And then the statistics also tell us that women don't get that first promotion to management that helps get them on the leadership track. Oh, see, this is live TV, folks, just lost the earring. So what are we going to do? We are going to support one another. We have to pay it forward. And someone who's been instrumental in my life in helping me to see opportunities and pay it forward is my co-host for today. Her name is Molly Russin, and Molly has joined us before. She is the owner of Triple Dove Communications and Employee Engagement. So let's take a listen to something that Molly shared the last time she visited Fit for Women TV.
You don't have to have every single step of your career mapped. Well, in 6 months, I'd like to, and then in a year, but I think I want to live in Paris too. You don't have to do that. But directionally, you need to have a pretty good idea of what you're good at, what you love to do, and don't miss this part, what your company values. What do you bring to the table that you know they're after?
Ding, 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 ding. We met when we were working in corporate America together, and Molly has been someone who recognizes women, and she recognized me, which provided opportunities. But that's not the only reason why Molly is here. She is a stellar communicator and storyteller. And today, Molly is joining because we're celebrating Women's History Month together. And we want to say why, Molly, will you share why you think it's important for us to take, an actual month to recognize women in this way?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. And I just have to say, you look fabulous, as you always do. One of Adrian's hallmarks is that she dresses for success. It doesn't matter if there's a pandemic. It doesn't matter if her grandkids are running around the room. It doesn't matter if it's a snowy day or a rainy day. She dresses every day. And she always looks fabulous. Today we have pink and sparkles.
Yes.
She has her, I see her A. I think it's for amazing. It's probably for Adrian, but in either case, you look gorgeous.
Thank you.
Women's History Month, I think that what's astounding to me is how many amazing women have accomplished so much throughout history. You've never heard of them. You have no idea what it is that they've done. And I'm talking about in every profession, certainly in the arts, really accomplished, amazing, amazing women. And honestly, all you have to do is Google famous women, pick your subject, pick your category, and 10 will come up. So I think the more we know, the more we know. And,
yeah.
And I love to broaden my own knowledge of women who have done amazing things. So, yeah.
Yeah, we really should know more. And we're going to know more about one amazing woman who is my guest as well. I had the opportunity to interview Angele Robinson Gaylord. Angele Robinson Gaylord. She is the Senior Vice President of Store Development for Rite Aid Drug. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Angele. She's been helping retailers and developers create and implement strategies to grow and protect their real estate portfolios for over 15 years. And as Rite Aid, she is leading the management team supporting over 2,400 retail locations across 18 states. She's originally from Maryland. She holds a BA in political science from Stanford University and a JD from Georgetown University's School of Law. Also, Angeli formerly worked at McDonald's Corporation and the U.S. Restaurant Development Division, where she supported real estate issues for existing restaurants for a portfolio of approximately 1,900 locations across 9 states. And before McDonald's, Angele practiced law for over 15 years in the areas of litigation and commercial real estate. So let's take a moment or a few moments to watch how Angele shares her story of career reinvention and the importance of paying it forward. Angele, it's so nice to have you with us today on Fit for Women TV, and I really appreciate your time. Can we start by celebrating Women's History Month? Yay!
Yay, absolutely. Excited that we have this month to focus on women in leadership and women, female empowerment. So it's a great month.
Yes. So why do you think that it's important that we have a month dedicated for us to have this celebration?
I think that it's important to have Women's History Month so that we have an opportunity to reflect and to plan and to aspire. Reflect on all of the amazing women who've come before us to pave the way, to break those glass ceilings, to celebrate, what they've done. But we also have to acknowledge the challenges that they encountered in creating the space for women like ourselves to be leaders in our industries. Also, we want to plan. We want to plan how do we inspire our younger generations of women on what's to come. And then we want to inspire and aspire to what's coming forward in the future. Some of these young women that are coming up these days, they are phenomenal and they are taking no prisoners. And so they inspire me. I went to dinner on Saturday night with this young group of women, and I'm like, my goodness, was I that confident at 20 something years old? And the answer is no. So they fuel me as much as I hope that my story and the stories of other women who've come forward fuel them.
That is awesome. So do you mind sharing what is your story? I know you have a stellar career. You worked at McDonald's, worked at IKEA, and now you're at Rite Aid. So how have you advanced, and what is it that women need to advance into leadership roles?
Oh, well, thank you. So my story is a little unique. I started off as a practicing attorney. I was practicing litigation and developed a love and appreciation for commercial real estate. But there were obstacles put in my way. They said that there wasn't a path, that litigators couldn't be real estate people. So I created what I call the triangular plan. First, it was to switch from litigation law to real estate law, and then from the legal side to the business side. And it took 11 years for me to make that transition, bit by bit, networking, talking to people, volunteering in my community, also taking classes and telling my story of what my ambition, what was I aspiring to do. I also completed a class that is meant to train women and people of color in commercial real estate called Project REAP, which I'm a very proud graduate of. And that led to my first position with McDonald's. So that helped me to taking that leap, making connections with people, and then continuing my education helped me to move from the legal side to the business side. And from there were still challenges. There were people who didn't think that I could be able to contribute strategically and didn't see how my skills are transferable. And so I just continued to chip away at it and created a way out of no way. Instead of when I didn't get promoted or wasn't allowed opportunities to be promoted, I said, well, how can I help you? So that I had a day job, and then my night job was to help this other team for no compensation, for no, advancement, but really just about skill development. And from that skill development, those were the skills that helped me to pitch myself and when an opportunity came up with IKEA. And at IKEA, I experienced something else. I had mentors and I had coaches and allies who supported me and advocated for me when I wasn't in the room. Again, you always have to outwork everyone. No matter when someone tells me no, that fuels me more than anything. And so hearing no about lawyers becoming real estate people, that was a fuel. And then just knowing that I was playing catch up, that I had made a pivot in my career, leaving behind what I was trained to do. I just worked harder than anyone did. And that was recognized and acknowledged. And I grew from being a real estate site selection manager to becoming the vice president of real estate, being promoted after 9 months. Then about 15 months later, became the president of IKEA Property, leading the US real estate team. And then another year and a half after that, I took over Canada as well. So leading all of real estate for the US and Canada for IKEA. I spent an amazing 5 years with them, but it was time to move on to a new challenge. IKEA only had 50 stores in the US and another 15 in Canada, wanted to take on a larger portfolio, and that opportunity was presented with Rite Aid, where we have over 2,500 stores around the US. And I lead that real estate team for this great organization.
Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned a couple key things. First of all, you had mentors and coaches along the way. I always say no one succeeds alone. And then success that you had happened over time. You put in the time. You want to share how important it is that we do invest in ourselves and go for what we really want. We don't have to settle.
For sure. I mean, the timepiece is, when I tell that story, people are a little shocked that it took that long, but I had to change my spots to stripes. Yes. And so I had to become a student of the new business. I was a trained lawyer, but I didn't know the language of real estate. So I started with basic classes in real estate development. I worked and volunteered. And so I invested in myself to achieve that goal once I had set it. And, it's paid off for sure in dividends. And then those mentors and coaches, my goodness, I have people who I still, go to, even being at the level where I am. I have friends who are sort of, the people who prop me up when I want to lick my wounds. I have mentors who believe in me and put me up for things that I don't think that I'm like, I'm not ready for that. And they're like, of course you are. And they guide me in those. And then I have allies who are in conversations that I'm not in, but speak good things about me and help me to understand the business that I'm in, as well as the politics that are often involved in corporate America. So just having people, those coaches and mentors and allies, help me to continue to be that student of my business, but also learning the rigors of being a senior leader in a large organization, as well as, how do you build those relationships beyond your function to be successful in your corporation.
So we met when you hired me for a project when you were at IKEA, and that was a branding workshop. First of all, thank goodness I had good branding, because that's how you found me. You said you were doing a search on LinkedIn. But why did you think it was important to bring that skill set into the organization?
People think about brands in terms of corporations and not about themselves. I think individually, we each have a brand, whether we've been proactive about creating it or it's just reactive from other people deciding and making decisions about who you are in the workplace. So I think, the things certainly that I took away from your workshop, and then why I think it's important, is that you control that narrative about who you are in the workplace. What do you want to be known for? What is your calling card? Are you known for someone who can deliver projects on, for me, and it's almost my catchphrase, we deliver projects on time, on budget, and within the scope. And that's, that is the calling card of my brand within my organizations, of we are always going to be mindful of the organization's needs. We're going to put those first. And so I want that to be the story, that's the lead story that comes out when someone talks about, Angele and how we perform our work. And that's what other people should be doing in terms of understanding maybe where you have opportunities or gaps, filling those, and then being proactive about telling your narrative in your organization and having being known for something in your industry. And so I think that's what personal branding brings to a professional.
Thank you so much. So just as we're closing with the last couple questions, what advice do you have for women who aspire to grow in their careers? We know that globally, only 24% of leadership positions are held by women, and the US is lagging. And then there's only 4% of women that are CEOs at Fortune 500 companies. So we've got a long way to grow and go. What's your advice to support women who want to achieve more and aspire to have greater opportunities?
I certainly believe in sharpening your axe. So sharpening your axe is, having a plan, having a short-term, a mid-term, and a long-term plan for your career, and that having that be a living document. So what are your personal development goals almost on a monthly basis, so that what you don't track, you don't achieve. And so I believe in using that as a tool to help advance yourself and to grow on an annual basis, on a monthly basis, to achieve those goals. I think there's also reaching out and networking is a huge piece of professional development. And it's not, don't just network when you need a job. Network when you want to learn a new skill, when you want to broaden your exposure to different topics, and make sure it's a two-way conversation. Don't just go to people with me. Find out what their interests are, what they are working and focusing on, so that you can also be a conduit of information for them. I think the other piece is making sure that if you do have any gaps, and having the opportunity to perhaps do a 360 review of yourself, so that you understand how you're being received in your organization, and then you build a plan to fill those gaps. For me, I used to have a huge fear of public speaking, and so identifying that and then becoming more comfortable. And I'm much more of an introvert. I call what I put on my extrovert suit, so that I can have conversations like this with you. But it becomes much, it used to be something I had to pull on. Now it's much more natural. But again, identifying those opportunities you have and working on them. And then certainly finding people who have maybe set the path. I believe in working smarter, not harder.
Yes.
So finding people who inspire you, looking at their careers, and you may or may not have a personal connection, reach out to them. Most people are very happy to help. And, I believe in lifting as we climb. So as I'm trying to climb, I'm trying to pull up people behind me. And I feel it's because of the path, the 11 years that it took to get to this moment, I want to make sure that path is much, much shorter and smoother for other women. So I'm always open to networking and, supporting other women in their growth and development.
My path has been 7 years to this point. So I get it. It takes time, but it's been 9 years since I left corporate America, right? So I am in full agreement. Thank you for sharing. So we're going to close with some rapid fire questions. I just got two. All right. What is one of the things that you have on your bucket list?
Oh, one of the things on my bucket list is travel. When we can get back to something close to normal. My family and I have a goal of visiting every continent.
Oh,
so we've hit 4, and we hope to close out the rest very soon.
Okay, and last one, who do you admire most?
Oh gosh, I think that I admire most my dad. My dad was an amazing person. He's no longer with me, but he, the lessons that he filled me with before he passed resonate and still sit with me every day. He didn't have a lot of formal education. But he, worked his way up to become a vice president of his organization, using all of the things that I've spoken of before: networking, being a student of his business, working, outwork everyone, and all of those things. So he's always my inspiration.
Thank you so much, Angele, for your time, all of that great advice. We really appreciate you. Happy Women's History Month, and we wish you all the best for continued success. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, Adrian. I appreciate the time.
Well, I hope you've been inspired by that interview with Angele, a woman who took charge and changed her career to find greater fulfillment. And now I am glad that Molly is with us because we're going to talk about another history maker in the healthcare field. And Molly, will you introduce our profile?
I will. And I just wanted to say, as Angele was talking, I was reminded of this meme that I saw a little while ago. And it had a whole bunch of women like going up a staircase. And each woman had one hand reaching in front of them and one hand reaching in back of them.
Yes.
And that always reminds me to remember to ask for help, because there are people who will pull you up. But as that's happening, remember to reach in back of you and give a hand to somebody else, because there's always somebody there. And it was the coolest thing, all these women going up the ladder, because that's how you do it. You can't always have your hands out, you know, help me, help me. You have to have one hand in front, one hand in back. So
I've had so many blessings and opportunities because I was helping other people. And I wasn't doing it for that reason, but that is the way karma works. The more you give, it comes back to you. Thanks for saying that, Molly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so speaking of finding fulfillment and paying it forward, and speaking of the pharmacy business, right? Your guest is a SVP at Rite Aid. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Julia Pearl Hughes.
Yeah.
If anyone has ever heard of her, I'm surprised, because I certainly never have. But what an amazing woman. So first of all, she was the first African-American woman to successfully own and operate her own drugstore. She was born in 1873 in North Carolina. She went to pharmacy school at Howard University.
HBCUs.
Yes. She then came to Philly and did her post-grad work at the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, which is now University of the Sciences. Wonderful. And got her first pharma job where she ran the hospital pharmacy at Mercy Douglas Hospital. Next, she opened her own drugstore at 937 Christian Street in South Philly.
Yay!
Called Hughes Pharmacy. She married. She moved to Newport News, Virginia, where she opened another pharmacy and started something called the Columbia Chemical Company. That was her husband's last name.
Well, Molly, say what year that was.
That was 1909.
1909.
And then that's not enough. In her basement, she started the Hair Care Vim Chemical Company. So she started a line of hair care products for women of color. This is in her basement in her spare time.
Okay.
And then something interesting happened. In 1916, she was on a train. She was visiting one of her businesses in Maryland, of which she had several. She was sitting in first class, and the conductor asked her to move because a white customer had come on board and there weren't enough seats in first class. And she was like, really? So she got off the train. She hired an attorney and she sued that railroad. And let me tell you something, she won a cash settlement, which was very unusual back then. But this is just how incredible this woman was, how strong she was, and how much she, she started to think about not just business, but she started to think about her community and about paying it forward. She moved to New York and she became a political activist. Wow. She joined the NAACP, the National Council of Negro Women, and the local chapter of the National Urban League. And then she ran on the Republican Party ticket for the New York State Assembly from the 19th District. She kept her company for 30 years. She was incredibly successful, and she died at home in New York City in 1950. So again, Julia Pearl Hughes, don't know if anybody ever heard of her, but wow, what an amazing woman, amazing business, and then said, how can I give back? How can I have a voice? How can I help my community? And she did it. She did it all. Pretty astounding.
Yeah. Well, Molly, thank you so much for sharing that. I was so excited when you provided that to me and said, look what I found. So, I really appreciate that. And speaking of paying it forward, is there someone who has helped you that you would consider, and that inspires you to pay it forward?
I think a million people, but I always will think back to my first boss who said to me, you know why men are successful? Because they know how to make money and they like to talk about money. And learn something about the financial aspect of whatever business you are in. And as an English major, that was very, very good advice to me. How do they make money? Because, if you don't have an understanding of that, no matter what business you're in, you're always going to be kind of behind the 8 ball. So anyway, it was an interesting piece of advice.
Fantastic. Well, Molly, thank you so much for co-hosting with me. This is not the last time you all will see me and Molly together. She's a bright light in my life. And look, I actually prayed for her to be able to retire so that she and I could have more time together. But before we close, I just want to wrap up with a few things. And that is, no matter what you're doing, we talked about the statistics, but it's up to us. Our success is dependent on what we do and how we build relationships with others and paying it forward. So I want to say a couple things. Work smart, stay committed, and create a support system. And then make sure that you do something to help someone else. I am thankful for the history makers that have been a part of my life. Daria Latour, who introduced me to the academic world. Karen Marsdale, the former president of a chamber, who introduced me and provided opportunities for me in the business world. Holly Parker, a stellar executive and nonprofit, who's provided me with opportunities to serve those communities. And then Muna Banji, who was a corporate mentor, and now she is still supporting me and enabled a role as a global mentor to help underserved and disadvantaged youth. And we're going to be having a launch at 12:30 right after this show. So I encourage you to go to my Facebook page, Coach Adrean. Also, go to my website, coachadrean.com. I thank you for joining us today on Finding Fulfillment and Paying It Forward. Have a fit-tastic day.
Congratulations to Coach Adrean Turner for being the recipient of the Alvernia University Women Council Award for her award-winning career and service. Thank you for watching Fit for Women on BCTV with Coach Adrean. And catch up with Coach Adrean Turner at www.coachadrean.com.